On an ordinary day, everything has changed. Zhang Chong, an ordinary person, brought his parents to his girlfriend's house in the mountainous area. Suddenly, the end of the world and the terror of zombies occurred. Through his own efforts, he found his family and went to dangerous county towns again and again to search for supplies. He kept hoarding goods, and persistedFeilu novel network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. In-laws meeting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. October 1st, 2023, today is a good day. Many of Zhang Chong's classmates and comrades got married today, and 28-year-old Zhang Chong also brought his parents to his girlfriend Xiuxiu's house today, intending to meet their parents. Zhang Chong's girlfriend's surname is Liu, and her full name is Liu Xiuxiu. Xiuxiu and Zhang Chong are high school classmates. Both of them are from MC County, BD City, HB Province. However, Zhang Chong is from the south of the county, Xiuxiu is from the west of the county, and the west of MC County is the rugged Taihang Mountains. The white Jianghuai SUV whined as it raced for an hour before stopping in its beautiful hometown of Changxi Village. With a click, the car door opened and 3 people got out of the car. A man in his 60s, with short and flat hair, a calm and composed man, a woman in her 60s, slightly chubby with white hair faintly visible between her strands, and a young man with short and flat hair, over 1.7 meters tall, weighing over 160 pounds. These 3 people were Zhang Chong's parents and Zhang Chong. As soon as Zhang Chong got off the car, his parents happily watched the scenery of Changxi Village. Changxi Village is really remote, but to be honest, the scenery in Changxi Village is really good, with clear mountains and beautiful waters. Changxi Village is located at the corner of 2 mountains, and a small river flows quietly, dividing the village in 2. The houses in the village are built along the mountain, like terraced fields, spreading from the foot of the mountain to the top of the mountain, about 3 or 4 floors. Xiuxiu's house is on the top floor north of the small river, and the village is very small, with dozens of households. Zhang Chong heard Xiuxiu say that in recent years, the people in the village have slowly moved to the county town, leaving only a few elderly households. There are only a dozen elderly people. Zhang Chong's parents praised the scenery here and took out gifts from the trunk of his car, then prepared to climb the mountain slope to meet his in-laws. Looking up, Xiuxiu had already come out of the house to greet her. She called out to her uncle and aunt while taking the things from Zhang Chong's mother's hand. Arriving at Xiuxiu's home, Xiuxiu's parents and younger brother warmly welcomed Zhang Chong's family. Zhang Chong, on the other hand, blinked at Xiuxiu with a cheap expression, causing Xiuxiu's face to turn red. She secretly twisted a circle around Zhang Chong's soft waist, and Zhang Chong dared not shout in front of so many people. She could only straighten her neck and grin forward. Seeing this scene, Xiuxiu's younger brother Xiaoyang smiled and asked, "Brother, what's wrong with you?" Zhang Chong quickly said, "It's okay, I stepped on a stone and hurt my foot." After both parents sat down, Xiuxiu quickly went to the kitchen, where meat was still being stewed. Zhang Chong sat with both parents for a while before running to the kitchen to find Xiuxiu. Xiuxiu had just finished cutting vegetables and was about to stir-fry when she saw Zhang Chong coming over. She immediately smiled and said to Zhang Chong, "Uncle and aunt finally came over. Don't leave today. Xiaoyang and I have already tidied up the house. We will go to the river to catch fish tonight. There have been many fish in the river recently." Zhang Chong smiled and said, "Okay. Let me tell my parents. By the way, let me see what delicious food you make." Xiaoyang, who was standing beside him, said, "The stewed wild rabbit was caught by my dad from the cover up and down the mountain yesterday. It was very fat, and the fish in the river was also stewed, and there were many dishes." Upon hearing Xiuxiu's brother's words, Zhang Chong remembered that his father-in-law had lived in the mountains for half his life. Whenever he wasn't busy with farming, he would go up the mountain to dig herbs and catch wild animals to find strange stones. In the evening, with a gentle breeze, the group of people who had eaten and drunk were strolling along the road. On both sides of the road are persimmon trees, and flocks of ducks swim in the river. Xiaoliang walked out of the house carrying 3 ground cages and shouted to Zhang Chong and Xiuxiu to go to the gentle water by the small river to put down the fish cage. Returning home at night, 3 young people were still watching the fish they had caught, while 4 elderly people had already returned to their houses. A beautiful day had passed, and Zhang Chong never expected that it would be both the beginning and the end. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 2. Screaming in the Midnight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the night in the mountains, the wind blows gently, and various insects chirp. Occasionally, 2 long cries can be heard from the valley, resembling those of monkeys and roe deer. At 4 o'clock in the morning, Zhang Chong and Xiuxiu were sleeping soundly when suddenly, a heart-wrenching scream came from the next door of Xiuxiu's house. Zhang Chong sat up from the bed with a loud cry, and Zhang Chong's parents also got up. Zhang Chong's mother said to Zhang Chong, "Xiao Chong, what's wrong with this? It's like fighting in the middle of the night." Zhang Chong returned and said, "Mom, I don't know either. I'll go take a look." As soon as Zhang Chong left the house and arrived at the yard, he saw that Xiuxiu's family had also gotten up and arrived in the yard. Zhang Chong walked up to Xiuxiu and asked, "Xiuxiu, what's going on?" Xiuxiu said, "I don't know either. It sounds like my second aunt's house, I don't know what's going on." When Zhang Chong and Xiuxiu were talking, Xiu's father and mother had already opened the door and were preparing to go to the neighboring Xiuxiu's second aunt's house. Zhang Chong and Xiuxiu quickly followed out upon seeing this. Heir Auntie's house is right next to Xiuxiu's, and the 2 families are adjacent. When we arrived at Heir Auntie's door, Xiu's father knocked on the door and shouted, "Heir Gu Heir Saw, what's going on? Open the door." After knocking for a long time, there was no response from Aunt Heir's house, but the shouting became quieter and faintly came a whining sound, like the deterrent sound of cats and dogs protecting their food. Upon hearing this whimpering sound, the 4 of them couldn't help but glance at each other. It was still Xiuxiu's father who was relatively calm. He was used to seeing various wild beasts in the mountains and inexplicably felt a sense of danger. Xiuxiu's father said, "I don't feel quite right. It sounds like a wild beast has entered the house." Xiuxiu's mother whispered, "In these years, there have been only wild boars, deer, rabbits, and chickens. We have never seen any wild beasts that can enter the house and harm people." Xiuxiu's father said, "Let's go back first and get this thing." After returning home, everyone gathered together and decided that the woman would wait at home. The men went over the wall from Xiuxiu's house to Aunt Heir's house to check the situation together. Before crossing the wall, Xiuxiu's father brought out a bunch of guys for everyone. Xiuxiu's father brought his own hunting knife, which was made by himself. It was over 50 centimeters long, polished and shiny, and there were still blood stains in the blood tank. At first glance, there were many wild animals killed. Zhang Chong's father picked a knife in the style of an Eastern style that was about 1 meter long, but it didn't cut. It looked like the kind of knife he had bought at a temple fair in the town earlier years. Many villagers had bought some of these knives at the temple fair earlier and hung them in their main houses. Zhang Chongshan picked up an iron shovel, which was 1.5 meters long. Due to years of use, the shovel head was shiny, and it was sharp at first glance. Xiaoliang carried a pickaxe handle on his shoulder. Xiu Dad saw that everyone had taken matters into his own hands, so he took the lead and climbed the ladder to his own roof, and then from his own roof to Aunt Heir's roof. As the 2 families were close together, he walked his legs and slowly walked down Aunt Heir's ladder. Occasionally, there was a clattering sound coming from the room, as if touching a table, chair, or bench. There was no more whining, but none of the four dared to take it lightly. Xiao Dad asked everyone to hide on both sides of the sliding door to prevent wild animals from suddenly rushing out and injuring people. He slowly opened the sliding door and, under the moonlight, everyone poked their heads out to look inside. Seeing the mess in the hall, with bloodstains everywhere, from the inner room to the inner room, there was a person squatting in the middle of the hall. When he heard the sound, he slowly stood up and turned his head. Seeing this person, Xiaoyang and Xiao Dad couldn't help but speak at the same time, saying, second uncle, what's wrong with you? What's going on? Xiao's second uncle didn't speak, his eyes were all white, and his mouth purred, like the roar of a wild beast before attacking. His exposed mouth was actually sharp teeth. Xiaoyang couldn't help but let out an ah cry, which seemed to wake everyone up. Xiao's second uncle had already rushed towards him, but the speed was not particularly fast, just the speed of an ordinary person. However, Xiao Dad in front of him didn't know how to react. This was his second brother, and he didn't know what to do. At this moment, Zhang Chong lifted his hand, and Tai Chi pressed against the chest of second uncle who was rushing towards him. The ribs of second uncle's chest creaked and broke, but second uncle did continue to pounce as if nothing had happened. Zhang Chong had to lift Tai Chi again, but this time, he continued to push against him. Due to nervousness, Zhang Chong lifted Tai Chi a bit high. Second uncle bumped his head into Tai Chi and got stuck in it from the position of his eyebrows. Second uncle suddenly fell, and Zhang Chong's Tai Chi also let go. Zhang Chong looked at his hands dumbfounded and muttered, I killed someone. At this moment, Xiao's father reacted and quickly turned on the flashlight on his phone to look at the ground. Aunt Air was lying on the ground, twisted in pain, with a large hole in her neck bitten open, revealing her trachea and a large hole in her stomach. Her internal organs were flowing, and there were signs of tearing and biting on top, and she had already died. Seeing this scene, the four of them all showed an incredulous expression, but at the same time, they all regained their composure. Just then, the second ant on the ground suddenly moved and slowly grabbed the ground with her fingers, making a creaking sound. Her body stood up in a twisted shape, her mouth full of sharp teeth and pale eyes, and she walked towards the crowd. Zhang Chong, who had read the post-apocalyptic zombie text, seemed to understand. He watched as second auntie walked over with a grin on his face, lifted his iron handle, and forcefully struck second auntie's head, chopping off half of it. Second auntie remained motionless, which frightened the remaining three of them. Everyone didn't know what was going on, and Zhang Chong didn't know how to explain. He could only pull everyone home first and lock the yard gate after returning home. Zhang Chong told everyone about the movies and novels he had watched, and what zombies and the apocalypse were, but everyone didn't believe what he said and thought it was impossible. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 3. Brother.in.law's message. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just as Zhang Chong was worried about how to explain to everyone, his phone suddenly rang. In the quiet night, the phone's ringtone seemed particularly loud. Zhang Chong took out his phone and saw that it was Zhang Chong's second brother.in.law. Zhang Chong has two older sisters. The eldest brother.in.law is a liquor salesman, and the second brother.in.law is an excavator driver. Zhang Chong's second brother.in.law happened to be on the night shift. Zhang Chong answered the phone, pressed the amplification button, and only heard Jiang Yuan's urgent voice on the phone. Xiao Chong. It's not good, there's a cannibalistic monster. Zhang Chong replied, Brother, do you have it too? Upon hearing Zhang Chong's words, Jiang Yuan knew that he had also encountered a cannibal monster. He quickly returned and said, I was working the night shift when suddenly one of the people working with me went crazy and grabbed another person to bite him. His sharp teeth filled his mouth, and the people he bit became just like him. Zhang Chong hurriedly said, me too. Where are you? Did you call my second sister? Jiang Yuan said, I called your sister and asked her and her child not to go out and wait for me to go back. I am in a mountain ditch on the west side of the county, which seems to be called Changxi Village. There is a water plant here. Recently, heavy rain washed away the river here, and I used an excavator to clean it up. Zhang Chong was stunned. In Changxi Village, isn't this Xiuxiu's village? He quickly said, brother-in-law. I'm also here, my parents are also here. Xiuxiu's family is here. Don't move, let's go find you. By the way, is your cannibal monster still there? Jiang Yuan said, I killed them all. I'm in the excavator. They were all crushed by me operating the excavator around. Zhang Chong said, that's good. There aren't many people here, so don't worry. We'll go pick you up right away. After speaking, Zhang Chong didn't hang up the phone and directly asked Xiuxiu, is the water plant in your village far from us? Xiuxiu said, not far, just a few miles away, that's where the curved wall was when you came. After thinking for a moment, Zhang Chong took a knife and called Xiao Yang to lead him out. Before leaving, Zhang Chong said to the remaining 5 people, Mom and Dad, quickly call my older sister and ask her what's going on. Uncle and Aunt, hurry up and call our relatives to report this situation. While Zhang Chong was saying these words, his phone suddenly disconnected. Zhang Chong looked at it quickly and found it difficult. The phone was out of signal. When he asked everyone, they realized that all the phones were out of signal. Zhang Chong instructed his parents not to be anxious or panicked, and quickly ran to the car with Xiao Yang, preparing to pick up his second brother-in-law. Zhang Chong was driving on the road, with the wind blowing loudly at night, as if there were signs of unrest everywhere. Finally, he arrived at the water plant and saw an excavator parked in the river next to the plant, with its headlights on. There were 4 or 5 flattened bodies around the excavator, and its arms were still raised high. Zhang Chong got off the car with a knife and walked cautiously to the riverbank, looking into the excavator. Suddenly, the machine spring bounced and with a click, the door of the excavator opened. Zhang Chong's brother-in-law secretly peeked out and whispered, Xiao Chong, aren't there any monsters around? Zhang Chong said, no, brother-in-law. This is a mountainous area and there aren't many families here. Come over quickly, let's go quickly. Jiang Yuan said, I need to go home first. Your sister and child are still at home. Zhang Chong quickly said, let's go together. Don't worry, I'm not at ease with my sister. Jiang Yuan got into the car, Zhang Chong stepped on the accelerator, and the car shot out Qingming outing in happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 4. Going home to find people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang Chong and Xiao Yang returned to Xiuxiu's home with Zhang Chong's brother-in-law. Along the way, the 3 of them were extremely nervous, afraid that another cannibalistic monster would emerge. Returning home, Jiang Yuan greeted Lin Chong's parents and hurriedly asked when Lin Chong would return. He also had to hurry back to see how his wife and children were doing. It was almost 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was dawn. Zhang Chong gathered all the people together and told his own speculation. Zhang Chong said, Mom and Dad, uncles and aunts, I don't think this is an accident. My brother-in-law also met the kind of monster that eats people. The person who was bitten will soon become the same as the monster. This is exactly the same as the zombie in the movie I saw, and the signal has not yet disappeared. This is very abnormal. I think we should make preparations early. Zhang Chong's father said, what preparations do you think we should make? Zhang Chong's mother continued her conversation and said, Xiao Chong, I'm very worried about your sister and her. I don't know how they and the child are doing. There's no signal on my phone now, it's really frustrating. Zhang Chong said, "Mom, don't worry, listen to me. We are now divided into two parts. First, women will stay here for now. The population here is sparse, and there are only a dozen or so elderly people in the whole village. I don't know how many people can survive. Even if they all turn into zombies, we won't be afraid. Then Uncle and Xiaoliang will stay in the village to protect the women and collect the materials they can collect, but don't take the risk of going to places where there may be zombies. My dad and brother. Law, let's go back to the county town." Zhang Chong just said, and Zhang Chong's mother and Xiuxiu quickly said that the county town is too dangerous. Zhang Chong also said, "There are many people in the county town, it must be dangerous, but you have noticed that it's too dangerous." "No, it's around 4 a.m. when it turns into a zombie. During this time, most people are sleeping at home. When we return to the county town, it may be the time when the number of zombies is the lowest. We should quickly find someone while the zombies can't come out of our house." Xiuxiu's father said, "Xiao Chong is right. Taking advantage of the scarcity of monsters called zombies now, it is a good opportunity. When the zombies slowly come out, it will be difficult to enter the county town. Now everyone thinks it's an opportunity, so no one is previewing it." Zhang Chong returned to the county town. Zhang Chong's father said, "Things should not be delayed, let's go quickly. The longer the delay, the more troublesome it becomes." Zhang Chong and Jiang Yuan responded, "Let's go." The three of them drove Zhang Chong's white Jianghuai Ruifeng towards the direction of the county town. Along the way, as Zhang Chong said, they did not encounter many zombies, only a few scattered ones, wandering on the road. Some zombies parked in the driver's cab of the large truck on the roadside kept knocking on the window glass. Due to the lack of vehicles along the way, Zhang Chong drove very quickly and only took more than 40 minutes to reach the county town. Zhang Chong first went to the house of his elder sister in the county town. Zhang Chong's residential area was already on the western edge of the county town. When he arrived at the entrance of the community, he saw that the security guard had already turned into a zombie and was wandering around the door. As soon as he saw a car coming, he immediately rushed over. Because it was a zombie, Zhang Chong had already passed the hurdle in his heart. Without any hesitation, he rushed towards the security zombie and flew it several meters away. Zhang Chong picked up the dongyang knife he brought out and got off the car. The security zombie seemed to have broken its legs and struggled to get up. He grinned and walked towards Zhang Chong, but he didn't dare to get too close to the security zombie. When he could see the distance with the knife, he stopped and stabbed the zombie's eye socket, causing the zombie to stop moving. Next, Zhang Chong lifted the fence blocking the way and drove to the building where the elder sister was located, Unit 2 of Building 8. Zhang Chong and his three companions got out of the car and were vigilant in observing the surroundings. Seeing that there were no zombies around, they quickly went upstairs and found Zhang Chong's house. However, no one rang the doorbell, and just as the three of them raised their heads, the door opened. It turned out that Zhang Chong and her companions were hesitant to open the door at first, until it was confirmed from the cat's eye that it was Zhang Chong and the others who could open the door. After the three of Zhang Chong entered the door, they found that the eldest sister and her family were all in the living room. They quickly asked them to pack up and prepare to leave. Zhang Chong quickly asked where they were going, and Zhang Chong told her family about what had happened. Zhang Chong murmured, "No wonder the whole building has been in a mess since around 4 o'clock, thinking that a fire had occurred." Zhang Chong led his elder sister's family out the door directly. Zhang Chong's family was driving their own Nissan, and on the way out of the community, they encountered another security guard zombie. This time, Zhang Chong didn't have a chance to drive out directly, but the elder sister's family in the car behind them were frightened. The zombie stumbled and ran towards the car, causing the two little girls in the elder sister's family to cry, and the elder sister's face turned pale with fear. After leaving the community, Zhang Chong asked his father to sit in the eldest sister's car and lead the way. He first took the eldest sister's family to Changxi village, while he and his second sister's husband went to the second sister's house. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 5. Finding Second Sister. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Along the way, Zhang Yuan, the second brother. Law, kept trembling his hands and tightly pursing his lips. Seeing this scene, Zhang Chong couldn't help feeling nervous, but he still comforted him. Zhang Chong said, Brother. Law, don't worry, my sister and they will be fine. Zhang Yuan didn't say anything, just nodded. Seeing this, Zhang Chong didn't know how to comfort him. Fortunately, the second sister's house is not far from the county town. It took about 15 minutes by car to reach Zhang Yuan's village. Jiangbao Village. At the entrance of the second sister's house, as soon as they got off the car, the two of them felt something was wrong because there was a clanging sound of knocking on the door and the roar of zombies coming from the second sister's house. Hearing this, the two of them didn't care too much. Zhang Yuan quickly took out the key to the house and opened the door, while Zhang Chong pulled out the uncut dongyang knife. As soon as the door opened, a black shadow rushed over, revealing the corpse of a young man. Without much thought, Zhang Chong kicked him out and thought to himself, You're joking, do you think I've been a soldier for 5 years for nothing? Although I've gained a lot of weight since opening a pet store in the past 2 years. The zombie was kicked to the ground by Zhang Chong, but unexpectedly did not get up and got stuck in the debris under the shadow wall. When Zhang Chong was looking at the zombie, Zhang Yuan suddenly called out its name. It turned out that the zombie was Jiang Meng, the younger brother of his second brother. Law Jiang Yuan. Jiang Yuan was also in great pain at this moment, and his younger brother who grew up together turned into a cannibal monster. Zhang Chong saw his second brother. Law's face full of pain, but he couldn't help but say, Brother. Law, let's find my sister and child first. Jiang Yuan finally realized and walked into the room with tears on his face. The door was tightly locked inside, and Zhang Yuan trembled as he twisted the door handle and shouted, Yao Yao. It's me. Are you okay? With a click, the door opened, and there were 4 people inside, 1 big, 3 small, and Zhang Chong's second sister and 3 nieces were all well inside. Just as if scared, Zhang Chong's second sister, Zhang Yao, trembled and said, You've finally come back. I don't know what's going on. Xiaoming suddenly went crazy in the middle of the night and started smashing the door. I opened the door and went out to see what was going on with him. He became like a monster, with sharp teeth and white eyes. I finally ran back to the house. As she spoke, Zhang Yao couldn't continue and burst into tears. The children next to her also cried. Jiang Yuan hugged Zhang Yao and comforted him and the children, It's okay, it's okay. I'll take you to a safe place now. After speaking, they didn't dare to stay any longer. After greeting Zhang Chong, the two of them began to pack up their things. After packing up his things, Zhang Chong thought for a moment and asked his second brother. Law to drive their own car back to Changxi village. He wanted to go back to his own home. But when the second brother. Law and second sister heard Zhang Chong's plan, they both disagreed and said, It's too dangerous. There's nothing left at home now, safety is the most important thing. After thinking for a moment, Zhang Chong said, There are still cats and dogs at home. I don't want to leave them at home. If it doesn't work, I'll let them go. It's better than keeping them in a cage and waiting to die. Zhang Chong's words woke Jiang Yuan up. Yes, he also has more than 1 dog at home. After thinking about it, Jiang Yuan quickly ran to the yard to release the 2 dogs locked in the big iron cage, 1 golden-haired and 1 firewood dog, which Zhang Chong gave him when he opened the pet store. Looking at the 2 dogs running out, Zhang Chong thought to himself, These 2 dogs are still in the big iron cage, otherwise we must let Jiang Meng, who has turned into a zombie, bite them to death. Just as I was thinking about it, the golden hare suddenly ran to the struggling zombie stuck in the clutter and bit its throat with one bite. This scene frightened everyone, and no one expected the gentle golden hare to bite the zombie. I saw big golden hare biting the zombie's throat, vigorously swinging his neck, and with a creak, the zombie's neck broke. The zombie immediately stopped moving, but golden hare was also scratched and torn by the zombie. Zhang Yuan felt both sad and helpless when he saw his younger brother turn into a zombie and be bitten to death by a dog. Zhang Yuan's parents died of illness since he was young, and he and his younger brother grew up relying on each other. Now my younger brother has turned into a zombie and I can't do anything about it. Being bitten to death by a dog can be considered a relief, at least I don't have to suffer like a walking corpse anymore. When Zhang Chong saw this scene, his thoughts were different from those of Zhang Yuan. Seeing the dog being scratched, Zhang Chong was also secretly vigilant in his heart, not knowing whether the dog would be infected if it was scratched by a zombie. After thinking about it, Zhang Chong found a rope and tied Jin Mao up. Jin Mao also recognized Zhang Chong and was obediently tied up. When Zhang Yuan realized from his sadness, Jin Mao had already been tied up for 5 or 6 minutes. Zhang Yuan asked in confusion, "Why are you tying it up?" "Afraid it might bite us." Zhang Chong said, "No, it just looked like it was caught by a zombie. I don't know if it might get infected, but it should be okay. It's been 5 or 6 minutes since then." After speaking, he scattered the golden hare. When Zhang Yuan and his family were preparing to drive away, Zhang Chong stuffed 2 dogs into the car. The car, which was already full, suddenly found it difficult to even move. Zhang Yuan was swept away by his golden tail and grinned in the driver's seat, asking Zhang Chong, "What are we doing with our dogs? We don't know if we can support ourselves in the future. It's better for them to find their own way of life." Zhang Chong thought for a moment and said, "I always thought this dog would bring us surprises. Let's take it back first." Zhang Yuan drove away, and Zhang Chong was also preparing to return to his own village. Zhangjiatan. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 6. Encountering strange beasts on the road. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang Chong drove from Jiangbao village and followed the village road towards Zhangjiatan. At this time, it was already dawn and the time on his phone had been inaccurate since there was no signal. Along the way, the roar of zombies came from many courtyards, which made Zhang Chong dare not relax at all. Just as I was driving into Zhangjiatan, suddenly, a black shadow swept past Zhang Chong's car. Zhang Chong slammed on the brakes and grabbed the co-pilot's dongyang knife with his right hand. Zhang Chong turned his head and saw that it was a spotted leopard with black stripes. It was about 1.2 meters long, not to mention its tail. Its long tail was almost 1 meter long. At this moment, the spotted leopard had already jumped onto the wall beside the road and was looking back at Zhang Chong's car. At this moment, Zhang Chong was in the car and didn't dare to move, afraid that he might accidentally make some noise, which caught the attention of the leopard. His hand holding the dongyang knife was filled with sweat. At this moment, the fierce and agile spotted leopard suddenly meowed at Zhang Chong's car. Yes, you heard it right, it was a meow. Zhang Chong unbelievably buckled his ears. This his mother is a cat. A leopard-like civet cat. Zhang Chong continued driving cautiously, but couldn't help but mutter in his heart, "Bully." As soon as Zhang Chong stopped at his doorstep, he heard the barking of a dog. Zhang Chong's family in the village is very large, with a house and a yard covering about 1 acre of land. After serving as a soldier for 5 years, Zhang Chong opened a pet shop because he liked pets. Recently, he had to raise money to buy a building in the county town, so he transferred the pet shop. At that time, some unsold pet cats were brought back to his home for temporary care. Zhang Chong opened the door and the 2 large dogs at home kept barking. A female Labrador named Luna. A male Great Shepherd named Coca-Cola. Zhang Chong opened the cage, and Luna and Cola bounced around him. Zhang Chong knew it was because they were hungry. At this moment, Zhang Chong was also a bit worried. This large dog is particularly edible. In this post-apocalyptic world, people are worried about what to eat. How should we keep this dog? But when Zhang Chong thought of the mutated cat he encountered on the way, he decided to take all his pets with him. If one of them could also mutate, would it be a big help for oneself? Thinking of this, Zhang Chong didn't hesitate much. He ran to the door, opened the rear door, and with a whistle, 2 dogs ran over. Zhang Chong said to the 2 dogs, "Go," and with 2 cheers, the 2 dogs got on the car. However, Labrador Luna was eating slower than Cola. Luna was a bit overweight, but there was no way. Labrador is too easy to gain weight, so many people called Labrador a pig that can't be pulled too much. Closing the car door, Zhang Chong quickly came into the room, calling out the names of each cat while searching for the aviation box to prepare for loading cats. Wow, Dian Dian, Xiao Bai, Hua Hua, Xiao Huang. After shouting for a while, I finally gathered all 6 cats. Wow, Dian Dian, these 2 cats are stuffed cats. Wawa is very intelligent and has a human nature. Every time he wants to eat, drink water, or have other things, he will run to Zhang Chong and shout, so Zhang Chong named it Wawa. Dian Dian is a key-colored glove puppet with a white dot on the center of the eyebrow, so it is called Dian Dian. Dian Dian is very close and calm and bold. Xiao Bai is a short-footed pure white English short, covered in snow-white fur, and used to be a pillar in the store. Zhang Chong never wanted to sell it, so he kept it. Xiao Bai is Xiao Bai's son and has grown up now. Xiao Bai is not short-footed, on the contrary, he is very powerful, with thick limbs, a thick tail, and big cheeks. If the mutated civet cat that Zhang Chong encountered on the way looked like a leopard, then if Little White could also mutate, it would definitely look like a small tiger. Hua Hua is a beautiful short and white cat, which is the prototype of an animated cheese cat. Hua Hua is very mischievous, both clingy and mischievous. She always likes to go out and play, often staying up at night, like a tattooed little girl, a true flower arm magnate. Xiao Huang is a 25-color golden crescent. When she was young, she was abandoned due to a severe cold. Later, she was saved by Zhang Chong, who injected and fed her medicine to take care of her as she grew up. Therefore, Xiao Huang is also the one who listens to Zhang Chong the most. Putting 6 cats into 2 large aviation suitcases, 1 in each hand, it was quite heavy. Opening the trunk of the car, Zhang Chong placed the cats in the trunk. He then returned home to carry a large bag of cat food and put it in the passenger seat. Everything was ready. Zhang Chong turned around to look at this home, which had been living for nearly 30 years, and left Zhangjiadan village with 1 foot on the gas pedal. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 7. Family Gathering. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang Chong was driving his car all the way on the national road when suddenly several zombies appeared on the road, swaying and walking towards the direction of the car. I saw these zombies dressed in uniform, and upon closer inspection, they turned out to be employees of roadside gas stations. No wonder gas stations are open 24 hours a day, so there must be employees outside. After this series of things, Zhang Chong's courage grew stronger and he thought to himself, it's just right, the car should also be refueled. As the steering wheel lightly turned to the left, the car collided with 4 zombies. Bang, bang, bang. 4 times, 4 zombies were scattered by the impact. 2 zombies were likely to have broken their legs and were crawling towards the car with both hands, shouting while crawling. The other 2 zombies had already stumbled and ran over. Zhang Chong observed the 4 zombies, all female zombies, running at a slightly slower speed than normal, but he didn't dare to be too careless. Zhang Chong got off the car with a dongyang knife. First, he stood at the front of the car, and the 2 zombies running from behind did not overtake Zhang Chong as expected from both sides of the car. Little did he know that Zhang Chong was waiting for them to separate. If they both got on together, Zhang Chong had to weigh whether he could beat them. Zhang Chong turned to the front of the female zombie who had run over first, raised his hand, and stabbed her face, quickly retreating. The female zombie's momentum combined with Zhang Chong's hand strength, and a knife was inserted into her mouth. At this moment, the female zombie on the other side had already arrived. Zhang Chong dodged the female zombie's pounce and stepped behind her. With a single kick, Zhang Chongmo exerted all his strength and kicked the female zombie on the ground. Zhang Chong casually pulled out the dongyang knife and hit the head of the female zombie with a single blow. Although the dongyang knife did not cut, under absolute force, it was still directly broken and a black liquid flowed out. After solving these 2 female zombies, Zhang Chong let out a breath and immediately walked towards the 2 female zombies crawling on the ground with his dongyang knife. With a swish of 2 knives, black liquid flowed from the heads of both female zombies. Zhang Chong raised his head, his eyes filled with confusion and then determination. A few hours ago, Zhang Chong was still an ordinary person, longing for a better life after marrying Xiuxiu. Although he was suffocated by the mortgage, it suddenly turned into a chaotic and terrifying world, and he still felt lost. However, he still had family and relatives, so he wanted to abandon his cowardice and become stronger. "There's no need to pay off the mortgage now," Zhang Chong murmured as he walked towards the car. Driving to the gas station and picking up the fuel gun, Zhang Chong realized that he couldn't refuel himself. Recalling the way he used to refuel, Zhang Chong hurriedly ran towards the 4 female zombies, groped around them for a while, and finally found the gas card on the first female zombie who was killed. He inserted the gas card into the machine, entered the amount, and directly filled up the car's fuel. After filling up the gas, Zhang Chong didn't hesitate to carry the gas card in his pocket. Stepping on the gas pedal in the car, scattered zombies encountered on the way collided directly with Zhang Chong. Zhang Chong stopped delaying and drove at full speed towards Changxi village. More than 40 minutes later, Zhang Chong arrived at Changxi village. As soon as the car stopped at the slope outside Xiuxiu's house, Xiuxiu came out. Xiuxiu had calmed down a lot and was no longer afraid or panicked. Xiuxiu said, "You're back, are you okay?" Zhang Chong said, "It's okay." Zhang Chong opened the door and released Coca-Cola and Luna. When she saw Coca-Cola and Luna, Xiuxiu was very happy. Obviously, she had already learned from the second sister's family about Zhang Chong going home to pick up the dog. Zhang Chong opened the trunk, took out the 2 aviation boxes containing cats, and walked towards Xiuxiu's house. Xiuxiu called out 2 dogs and followed Zhang Chong. At Xiuxiu's house, first tie the dog aside and put the cat inside. Zhang Chong looked at the lively courtyard. Zhang Chong has a family of 4, including Zhang Meng, her brother-in-law Zhang Chao, her eldest daughter Zhang Yin, 10 years old, and her second daughter Zhang Yijin, 4 years old. My second sister has a family of 5, including Zhang Yao, my second brother-in-law Jiang Yuan, my eldest daughter Jiang Kairan, 13 years old, my second daughter Jiang Kaixian, 10 years old, and my third daughter Jiang Kainuo, 6 years old. Xiuxiu is a family of 4, including Xiu's father, Xiu's mother, and Xiu's younger brother. Lu Xiaoyang. Zhang Chong's family of 3. Zhang Chong looked at the crowded small courtyard, still feeling a headache. There were 16 people, big and small, and there was definitely not enough to eat. Next, we need to consider how so many people live Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 8. Discussion on countermeasures. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Zhang Chong was stunned when all the children from his elder sister's house gathered around him. "Uncle! Uncle!" called out, and the children's faces looked somewhat worried, as if they were adults. When the children called out, Zhang Chong was no longer stunned and waved to welcome everyone into Xiuxiu's living room. Zhang Chong said to his two sisters, "Sister, please send the child to the next room first, and let's discuss things together." The two older sisters responded, and the second sister greeted the children to the next room and instructed them not to run around. She then returned to the living room. Zhang Chong asked everyone to sit down and first asked Xiuxiu's father if anything had happened since he left. Xiuxiu's father replied that he didn't, and he also made a statistics of the food in the house. There are still 4 bags of noodles, 6 mantou, half a bag of rice, a dozen tomatoes, half a basket of potatoes, a dozen peppers, 2 eggplants, 2 kilograms of eggs, and some commonly used condiments. By the way, there is also a pig leg and some mutton offal in the refrigerator, but I don't know when the power is cut off, the meat will go bad. Xiuxiu's father concluded. Xiuxiu's mother added, and the box of wine, a cigarette, a box of dew, a box of apples, a box of canned peaches, and a box of French bread that you brought yesterday. Zhang Chong nodded and said, "These things are almost enough for 16 of us to eat for 2 or 3 days. As many of us consume more, the most important thing for us now is to collect supplies and collect all the things we can use." Everyone nodded and felt that Zhang Chong was right. Zhang Chong continued, "Today we need to discuss how we will live and how we will survive in the future. First of all, the place where we live. With so many of us, the Xiuxiu family will definitely not be able to live. Fortunately, there are many empty houses in the village now, and many people have moved to the county town. There are only a dozen elderly people in the village, and we don't know if they are still alive. But we can't live too scattered, otherwise if we encounter danger, we won't have time to rescue them." Zhang Chong's father said, "Xiao Chong is right. In such dangerous times, it's better for us to stick together, and besides, we are all family." Xiuxiu's father continued, "Next door, Xiuxiu's second uncle's house is already dead. You can bury them and live in them. Next door is Xiuxiu's aunt's house, which has already moved to the county town. The houses are a bit old, but they are all adjacent, just separated by a wall." After a discussion, everyone unanimously decided to take action after lunch. The men were responsible for cleaning up the zombies one by one, ensuring safety by fighting less and more. The women followed behind the men, and every time a house was cleared, they collected all the necessary supplies inside. Next, the women got busy preparing lunch. Actually, it's only after 10 o'clock in the morning. The men were preparing for some trouble, and Zhang Chong still used his dongyang knife. Although it didn't cut, the quality of the knife was good, and it could chop the zombie skull into pieces. Zhang Chong's father used a newly found steel rod, 1 meter long, with a pointed tip. Zhang Chong's father should not be underestimated. Zhang Chong's father was a veteran who participated in the Vietnam War, had made contributions, and came from a secret service company. Zhang Chong remembers that when he was a child, his father's occasional display of combat skills shocked him. He also had conflicts with colleagues a few years ago when he was working. He picked 3 men in their 40s and beat each other's heads and blood, causing Zhang Chong to pay tens of thousands of yuan in compensation. Xiuxiu's father still used his own hunting knife, perhaps because he had been using it for a long time and was more accustomed to using it. The hunting knife was indeed shorter, but Xiuxiu's father was best at setting traps, laying traps, and secretly touching prey, and then killing him with one blow. Zhang Chong's brother-in-law, the second brother-in-law, and Xiuxiu's younger brother Xiao Liang are much simpler and more practical, with iron picks, axes, and pickaxe handles, respectively. After picking the right thing, the men began to discuss how to deal with zombies without getting hurt. Zhang Chong also shared his experience with everyone. Zhang Chong said, "The weakness of zombies is their heads. Only by breaking the bones of their heads and letting black liquid flow out or separating their necks and heads can zombies be killed." Speaking of this, Zhang Chong remembered the incident where Jin Mao bit the zombie to death. Xiu Xiu's father said, "We can do this later. Let's start cleaning from the next door. For houses that can open the door, let's enter through the door. For those with lattes and pickaxes, let's go first. If there are zombies rushing out, use long weapons like iron pickaxes and pickaxes to hold them or prevent them from approaching. When the shorter weapons get closer, they will hit the head. If we can't enter through the door, let's climb over the wall and lead the zombies to stand on the wall and break their heads." Everyone nodded in agreement that doing so was safe and secure. At this moment, Xiu walked over and told everyone that the meal was ready. At noon, everyone ate in Xiu's yard. It was a simple meal, including mantou, noodles and rice porridge, a large pot of shredded potatoes and a pot of scrambled eggs with tomatoes. This meal alone consumed dried noodles and mantou, and there were about 10 kilograms of rice left. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 9. Collecting materials. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After a full meal, Zhang Chong and his group walked out of Xiu's house one after another. They went to Xiu's neighbor's second uncle's house first. There were only 2 people in the second uncle's house, second uncle and second auntie, both of whom had already died. Zhang Chong and his group worked together to carry out the bodies of second uncle and second auntie, and finally carried them to the mountain where they were buried. Next, the men were preparing to go to the second house, while the women rushed into Uncle Xiu's house, only to hear a clanging sound of flipping boxes and cabinets from Uncle Xiu's house. The men arrived at the entrance of the second house, which was the home of Aunt Xiu. Aunt Xiu's family had moved to the county town very early to live, so there were no zombies in the house. There is a big iron lock on the door of Aunt Xiu's house, but how can this simple iron lock be difficult to hold on to everyone? I saw Zhang Chong's father holding a steel rod, putting one end of the rod into the lock, and forcefully pulling it with both hands. With a loud bang, the lock broke. This time we entered, everyone was much bolder because they had already learned from Xiu's father that there was no one in this house. After everyone entered, they walked around the room to ensure safety before leaving the door. At this time, the women who were searching for the house next door had already searched for their second uncle and second aunt's house. Zhang Chong called out and the women walked to Xiu's aunt's house again. However, Zhang Chong did not have too many expectations for Xiu's aunt's house. In the previous round, Zhang Chong had already found that Xiu's aunt's house was only left with some old furniture. After cleaning 2 houses in a row, basically 16 people can stay. Zhang Chong calculated in his heart that the innermost Xiu family lived with Xiu's family and his own family, the second uncle and aunt's house next to him lived with big sister's house, and the Xiu aunt's house next to him lived with second sister's house. Xiu's parents and Zhang Chong's parents are both old, so their parents live together, and Xiu's home is the safest place in the innermost part, which can effectively protect the safety of the elderly. Next, Zhang Chong plans to continue cleaning up the zombies in the village. On the north side of the small river, which is the side where Xiu's family lives, there are about 40 households, of which 6 or 7 have elderly people at home, and the rest of the houses are unoccupied. On the south side of the small river, there are also 40 or 50 households, and there are also nearly 10 elderly people there. However, it is not known whether those elderly people are still alive or have turned into zombies. All the houses in Changxi village spread upwards along the foot of the mountain, with a structure of about 3 or 4 floors, staggered high and low, built of stones and connected like a fortress. Then Xiu's father continued to lead everyone to clean up the zombies, layer by layer from top to bottom. An hour and a half later, Xiu's father led everyone to clean up 10 households. None of these 10 households were inhabited, but they all had basic living conditions. Even 2 or 3 households still had food and various seasonings. When the 18th house was cleared, the zombies were finally discovered. This household is located on the bottom floor near the roadside, and the house is very well built. It is a fashionable small villa. Before everyone enters, Xiuxiu's father explained the situation inside. There was an old man living inside before. Everyone carefully opened the door and found that the living conditions of this household were quite good. Not only were all kinds of furniture very good, but also a lot of rice, flour, grains, and oil were found in the kitchen, with all kinds of seasonings available. When everyone searched for the second-floor bedroom, as expected, there was a clanging sound coming from inside. As soon as we reached the second floor, we heard the roar of zombies in the bedroom. Then everyone arranged their formation, with the eldest brother Law and Xiaoyang standing at the front with a latte and pickaxe. The second brother Law with an axe and Zhang Chong with a dongyang knife stood behind, with Zhang Chong's father and Xiuxiu's father on the left and right. Zhang Chong carefully turned on the bedroom handle, gently pushed it, and the door opened. Suddenly, a black figure rushed out from inside, roaring and rushing towards Xiaoyang at the front. The eldest brother Law lifted the iron and pushed it against the chest of the black figure. Xiaoyang quickly went up and gave the black figure a headache, causing him to lose his life. The corpse's head tilted, and then it wanted to pounce forward. Zhang Chong was thinking of going up and stabbing the zombie's head. On both sides, Zhang Chong's father and Xiuxiu's father rushed up at the same time, only to hear a clang. The zombie fell to the ground, with a hunting knife and a pointed steel rod inserted on its head. Zhang Chong's father and Xiuxiu's father looked at each other and smiled, as if they both saw appreciation from each other's eyes. After easily resolving the zombie, Zhang Chong opened the window on the second floor, waved towards the lower floor, and women walked into this small villa one after another. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 10. Clearing up the zombies on the North Bank. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. At 6 p.m., as the last house on the north bank of Changxi village was cleared, all the residential buildings on the north bank of the small river in Changxi village were cleared by Zhang Chong and his team. There are 42 households on the north bank of Changxi village. Among these 42 households, besides Xiuxiu's family and Xiuxiu's second uncle and aunt's family, there are also 5 households with elderly people, but these 5 elderly people have all turned into zombies. Zhang Chong is both puzzled and grateful, but what's puzzling is why so many people have turned into zombies. What exactly caused the zombie outbreak? Fortunately, my family is still fine and hasn't turned into zombies. When Zhang Chong and his group of men returned home, the women were still moving things, pots and pans, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, tea, and clothes and bedding. Many of the 42 households in Changxi village were empty, and they had already moved to the county town to live. The houses where people lived had some basic necessities, but they were not many. After Xiuxiu's statistics, all the houses on the north bank of Changxi village were cleaned up on this day, including 8 barrels of oil, 8 bags of rice, 1 bag of 50 pounds, a total of 400 pounds of rice, 300 pounds of flour, and around 100 pounds of various vegetables. The seasonings were very complete, with salt weighing at most a few tens of pounds. In terms of daily necessities, I found a lot of clothes, but they were all worn by the elderly. There were many quilts, but I only found some relatively clean ones to take home, not all of them. After all, the weather is not very cold yet. In terms of tools, we also found 5 knives and a Han sword, all of which are modern handicrafts. At the end of this day, everyone, regardless of gender, was very tired. Men were responsible for fighting, women were responsible for finishing and collecting, and children were left in Xiuxiu's home, watched by the eldest child Jiang Kairan. Zhang Chong had just returned home when he heard the children shouting hunger at his parents. Zhang Chong's mother quickly organized the women and started cooking. Zhang Chong and a group of men sat together chatting about their previous battle experiences. Although they only killed a few old and weak zombies in the afternoon battle, everyone had already lost a lot of fear of zombies. Zhang Chong thinks this is a good phenomenon, but in fact, zombies are not that scary. The speed of zombies is about the same as ours, and may even be slightly slower than ours. After all, their bodies are very stiff, but our bodies are very flexible. As long as we are not afraid and overcome our fear mentality, we can rely on our walking and intelligence to eliminate zombies. After thinking about these things, Zhang Chong began to ask Xiuxiu's father about the situation on the south bank of the small river. Xiuxiu's father said, "There are about 40 or 50 households on the south bank of the small river, and I haven't counted the exact number of households. There are 8 or 9 elderly people over there, all of whom are elders from the village. They feel that they are old and willing to stay in the village but don't want to leave. The houses on the south bank are similar to those on the north bank, and they are all close together, but I can't remember which one is there." With the experience of today's battle and everyone's cooperation, Zhang Chong is no longer very afraid of encountering zombies to fight, but is considering how much material he can collect when he goes to the south bank tomorrow. After dinner, everyone gathered together again for a meeting. At the meeting, everyone reassigned some work. Zhang Chong's mother and Xiuxiu's mother are responsible for logistics, mainly taking care of the collected items. Zhang Chong's 2 sisters and Xiuxiu are responsible for following the men to find useful supplies. Zhang Chong and his father, as well as Xiuxiu's father, have not changed their weapons. Big sister, brother.in.law, brother.in.law, and Xiaoyang each chose a knife, but the iron shovel and pickaxe they had previously held were not abandoned because the team needed weapons for long-range attacks. After finishing the meal, everyone took action and cleaned the house next to Xiuxiu's house and Xiuxiu's aunt's house again. Convenient for Zhang Chong's eldest sister and second sister's family to live in. After cleaning and decorating, it was already 8 p.m. and it was completely dark. The first day of the apocalypse passed like this. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th.